Okay, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You're joining us for our platform series webinar. Today, we're going to show you how we can develop a supplier self-service app in 30 minutes. So this is going to kind of be technical. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll try to get them all answered for you. And feel free to ask as many questions as you like. And if there's something that you'd like answered that we didn't cover, set up a demo with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you can't stay for the whole hour or miss any of this, we'll send out the recording that you can forward to somebody that missed it. With that being said, we'll get started. I'm going to turn the time over to Doug Pulaski, our Director of Sales.
Kelly, thank you very much. My name is Doug Pulaski. I manage the sales and marketing at K-Rise. Today's session, as Kelly mentioned, is a technical session. That's why I'm going to be very, very brief, because the intent is to show the fast development time. Low-code platforms are known for taking out the complexities of traditional programming languages while offering many benefits. And that's what this webinar today. It's going to be 30 minutes. I'll touch on just a couple of slides. And with that, let me go to the next slide. First off, K-Rise has been around since 2005. We've worked with hundreds of JDE companies. We are the original low-code company. When we introduced ourselves to the marketplace, the JDE market in 2005, we had the Easy Process platform. And then we had, just like JD Edwards with tools, everything apps is tied to tools. Everything apps like the supplier app we're going to create today is tied to our low-code platform, Easy Process. With that, here's another way of looking at Easy Process. Once again, everything we do, or no, a way of looking at K-Rise, everything we do is based on our Easy Process low-code platform. We're creating what we call best practices pre-built apps like e-commerce and payments and buyer supplier portal and the app that we're creating today. And then we do a lot of custom applications. And when I say we, I should extend that to our customers too, because customers can easily learn this platform. There's no vendor lock. We give you the keys. That's a separate conversation that we can follow up on. We have all the certifications and accreditations because we're a payments company, PCI. Oracle is a very extensive validation. We're both 32 and 64-bit validated. And then from the CPA security process side, SOC2 Type 2 certification. And so this is my last slide. This is what I'm going to turn it over to Ben and Suman, and they're going to create an app in 30 minutes. Once again, focusing on how quick we have people out there every day creating apps in the JDE landscape. Some companies have lean IT resources. They come to us for services, but it's all about creating fast apps. So with that, I'm going to stop share. Ben, go right ahead.
Okay. Share my screen here. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to do a demo of a vendor application, and then I'll build some of those pages from that vendor application from scratch. But before I do that, I do want to introduce the gallery. So I'm in the IDE right now for our development platform. So if I click on this lab icon, this takes us into what we call the gallery. And this is where different users of our application can submit different parts of applications or full applications. Like you can see here, some examples like read Excel cell, doing a UOM conversion. These are different parts of applications that were submitted here. And actually, if I go to License Pre-Built Solutions and scroll all the way down, we can see the vendor app that we created for this demo at the bottom here. And clicking on info kind of pulls up some more information about it, and you can install the application just clicking this button here. And so with that being said, I will start sharing my phone. And the first thing I wanted to show was we have a native application, a native mobile application. So if I go into the Play Store and I search Easy Process, there's this application right here. And you can install this, in the App Store, on the Google Play Store. And so this is just to show if you wanted to develop a mobile application or have us develop a mobile application, we have this native application that you can use, which adds some functionality to the application, which you'll see. You can add stuff like signatures, and you can use the camera for certain things. And you can also have your own branding of this application. You can have a separate app and not use the Easy Process name, but use your own company name. And we can install it that way as well. So if I exit out of here and I open up the Easy Process app and I go ahead and log in, that puts me into the vendor application. So here we have a few pages. So if I click on View Purchase Orders, it brings us into a list of all of the purchase orders for the user that I logged into. The user has a supplier number tied to him. So I can click on details and see some line details for the PO. Click back and go back. We can search here. So if I search 908, it would only show that PO number there. If I go to the menu here, and we can go to the payment inquiry page, very similar idea. This just queries on a different table in JDE, the payments table for this supplier. And there's also the scan and sign page where we can upload a document. And if we do that and we're on a phone, we have the option to take a picture of the document. And so what I'm going to do is scan a W-9 form with my camera right here. Click OK. And then that file was uploaded. And so if we click sign and upload, it pulls up that form, and we can use the native app's ability to actually draw on this form here. So I can sign it, I can date it, and we click save. Then this will actually save that image, that signed image, into JDE as a media object attachment. And so I can build out some of these pages here. I'll start with the scan and sign page. So let me minimize this, and I will open up the vendor app demo, which is a fresh application. So this is the development side of this app. Here we're kind of greeted with the IDE screen. So here you can do plenty of different things like manage users, manage development of the application. I'm going to start with this project management menu and add a new job. And we'll call it vendor app. We can add some description here and submit. And then after creating a job, I'm going to create a task for a developer to go in and create these pages. So we'll say we want to create a scan and sign page in the PO inquiry. We can assign it to that job that we just created. It's going to be a feature, and I'm going to assign it to myself. And so we can add a description here. So we'll do some bullet points. We'll say create a scan sign page for mobile app to be inserted as media object attachment. And then create PO inquiry on F4301. And we can also attach some files to this task if we needed to, and we can submit. So this will send an email to the developer, and they can go into the IDE themselves and click on this icon in the upper right. This is the developer workbench. And they can use this plus icon to create a new project. So we'll click on our task, click add. And in here are all of the objects that we have checked out. So I'm going to add add an existing page. And this is going to be a web page. This is going to be that scan and sign page that you saw earlier. And so this page is going to be half built out. And I'll click into it to get into the development piece. This is going to be half built out here. You can see in the middle, this is the UI canvas. This is our web page. So we have the upload control that you saw earlier, that upload button, and the document name, and that sign button at the bottom. Over to the left here are drag and drop controls you can add here. So you can add buttons, text, labels like you see here. And so the design philosophy that we have for this UI designer is MVC. So this is model view controller. This means that we have a model, which is where all of the information, where we retrieve all of the information to then display on the view, which is this middle piece here. And then we have controllers as well, which tie to buttons or any kind of processes that you want to run on your page. And these will execute some logic. So the part that I want to add to this page is we want the sign button to pull up that signature pad. And then after the user signs, we want to send that signed document to JDE as a media object attachment. So to do that, I can add a controller. We'll just call it sign. And it's going to be a native signature / notepad controller. And then we can tie that to our sign button by clicking on the events. And then on click, we want to trigger that sign controller. And then here we have an option for the background image URL. This is the document itself after they upload. And this is going to be retrieved from the model. And it's going to be the file URL. And so now that signature notepad is tied to the sign button. So if I click that in the app, it'll pull up the signature pad. But we want to add another level on top of that, which is after they sign, we send it to JDE. So I'll click on the logic for the sign controller. This pulls up what we call the process canvas. And so this is how you design logic in any application that you develop on our platform. So we have a start and terminate node here. It runs everything in between, runs whatever services you add. To the left are the list of services that you can run. There's over 200 of these. Some of them do some very specific things. You can see we have database services. You can delete, you can inquire, you can insert. And then we also have, authorized.net workshop. You can authorize, capture. And so there's plenty of services to do any kind of logic that you need. And since this was a signature controller, we have some pre-created services here to help us along. The only one that I'll need, though, is this one in the middle here. So I'll go ahead and remove this update element and this signature node. So this service right here will save our signed copy as a file. So if I go into here, we can choose the file name for this. And instead of signature.png, we want to use the name of the file that was uploaded. So we can actually do this by looking at the file path and then taking from the upload output and from the model, the document name that was uploaded. And so that's all we have to do there. The next service that we want to add is called copy file to ECC. We have a program called ECC, which sits on a server that can communicate with JDE. And this will just copy the file that you signed and copy it over to that server so it can then be sent to JD Edwards. So in here, we're going to retrieve the file from the web server because that's where we saved it. The from file is going to be that same path that I defined earlier. So we're taking the file path and taking the document name. And so these red and blue tags that I'm putting in are going to be dynamic values kind of coming from the model. And then to file, we're just going to put the document name. So this will just save it in ECC under the document name, under the original document name. So the next service that I'm going to use is this write file service. And this I'm going to call write JSON script. And so now would be a good time to introduce, the JDE upload file attachment API. And so this is the documentation from JDE for the upload file attachment API. So if I scroll down, it expects a couple of parameters. We're expecting a file to send in, and we're expecting a media object add string, which is the JSON file. Going down here, we can just see an example of what that JSON file looks like. So I took some of this JSON and kind of pre-filled it with the inputs that we need for this application. So we're going to save the JSON file to ECC. The file name, we're just going to say upload.json. And the data, I just took this from my notes, but this is the JSON that's required to send, this document to the media object attachment. And you can see this dynamic value for the MO key. This is the user's AN8 value, so the address number of the supplier that's logged in. And so this is going to be dynamically filled as well. So exit out of this, and we're going to search for REST services. And I'm going to pull over this request service. And so this is going to be the actual call to upload the media object to JDE. So I'll connect that and we'll do terminate because this is the last one. I do want to go down here in the properties and execute through ECC since this needs to be on a server that has communication with JDE. And I'll just start filling out the properties here. We have the URL of the AIS API that we're calling. And then some of this is coming from the documentation, like the content type. We're expecting form data. And then we have to add a couple of files. So this is what I was talking about with if I go back to the documentation, they're expecting a file and the JSON string. So let's fill out these. And this is the location of the ECC server, that upload.json that we're creating. The documentation is expecting to be mo_add. And then the content type, once again, coming from the documentation, is application JSON. And then besides that JSON file, we also need the actual document. So we're taking the document from the ECC server that we uploaded earlier. It's going to be called file. And we're expecting a JPEG to come out of it. And we also have some compression options here. So if we want to compress this, we can set this to true, and the compression percent is just set to 80 by default, so we'll just leave that alone. And the next thing we need to do, also coming from the documentation, is defining these header values here. So I'll go ahead and fill these out. Connection to keep alive. So what I'm defining here is basically just a REST API call. And you would get most of this information from the documentation of whatever REST API you're trying to call here. So here's some connection options. And now that that's all filled out, this is everything that we had to do here. So I'll exit out of this. And that is the logic that's going to run after we sign the document. Yeah, on this new application that we have. And so what I'll do here is I'm gonna go ahead and share my phone screen again. And we can switch applications here to our demo application. And then we have the scan and sign page here, which is the new one that I just created. And we can upload a document. Use our camera again. Scan that W9 form. Upload and sign. Here it is. And we'll put in something else for the signature here. Just put in demo. Let's fill out the date again. Click save. And so now it should be running our logic. It received this signed copy. and it's calling that API to send it to JDE. So I'll minimize this, and we'll go into the address book. And the address number that we were working against was that Ben Test 11 account that I was using, which is 4344. And if we click on this attachment icon, we can see very compressed, but this is the first copy that I sent in with the webinar. And if I go to the second one, we can see our demo copy as well. So both media object attachments were added to JDE. All right, and the last thing that I want to develop is that purchase orders page. And this one I'm gonna make from scratch. So I'll click add new. We're gonna add a web page, call it purchase orders. Save. Then we can click in to get into it. And now we have an empty UI canvas here. So one way to add a list, and we want a list of all the purchase orders, is to use this list/grid wizard here. So if we drag this onto the UI canvas, it pulls up a list of options for us. We can call this POs, and we can do an inquire. These next 5 options are optional. They're kind of like paging, filtering, sorting, data download. So you'll see that in action. I'll leave these all checked for now. And then we'll choose the connection instance as our JDE database. We can go into our query builder, select our table path, and then I'm just going to search for the purchase orders table. Now here it is. It pulls in the table name and the table path. And now we want to define a where clause. And so this is the where clause builder. So we can add a filter, and that adds it here. We can define the column that we're searching on. So this is going to be the PHAN8. And we want this equal to the user's value of AN8, which is what you saw earlier in that REST API call. We'll just put it here as well. And so once the user loads this page, they'll only see purchase orders for their supplier. All right, and we also want to add a block here. And I also want to make this searchable on PO number and PO type. So that's that filter functionality. It's right here. We're leaving checked. And so you'll see that show up, but we can search on order number here. And we can change the operator to like. And then the value we're going to leave alone, this is going to be the value of our search box that we type in. And I want to set true for ignore blanks, because if we have nothing in that search box, we don't want to activate these filters. And then same thing here, we're going to search on order type. Going to turn this into a like operator, and it's going to be the value of our search box, and we're going to ignore blanks. And the last thing we need to do in this list wizard is define our results. So I'll drag on over all of our results. It pulls up this wizard here where I can select some columns. So we'll do this, and we'll select ship to. Let's add these selected. It forms the results for us. We can go in and edit some descriptions if we need to. Like let's say we just want this to be company. We want this to be order number. But the rest of it looks good. So we can add the control, and that added that list to our UI automatically. So we have the list here in the middle. Up on top, we have the data download, we have page size, we have a search box and a search button. This is the filtering option that we enabled. And then we have a paging option at the bottom as well. So if I click on desktop view up at the top here, and we'll log in as our Bentest 11 user, which is tied to address number 4344. And you can see these are all of the POs for this supplier. And so if we have some paging options, we can show 20 rows, put that down to 10 and load next. We can see all the rows there. Click on this CSV download button, and that'll download a CSV of the list. And we can also filter on order number and order type, which is what we enabled. So 746, it only pulls up this. And I believe they're all OP, so all of them should show up if I search OP. And yeah, this is an example of kind of a dynamic layout too, because I can also go into the phone view, and it adapts to a phone view instead of the desktop view. And I could also show this on my phone as well, which is what you saw earlier, that purchase orders page. And that kind of looks like this as well. All right. And that's it.
Ben, that was a great job. And once again, when you're showing the mobile view, we might want to explain that in our app, Easy Process is a web app, so it's browser independent. And when Ben was talking about the native app going into the Google and the Apple Store, that's simply a native app framework that we're using. It's React Native, it's Facebook, it's open source, but everything we're doing is a web app, which means that from a mobile perspective, we support thin client through responsive design that just comes up. I have an Apple, so that's Safari or Chrome that I'm using, or the native app framework that you download is a FAT client from Apple and Google, and that gives you the camera device functionality for scanning barcodes and things like that. But no, that was a great review, and we kept it within 30 minutes. Kelly, are there questions?
There weren't any in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, we'd love to take them right now. I think everybody has the ability to just unmute themselves. So.
And Suman, did you want to add any thoughts before we conclude the webinar?
No, I'm fine. You talked about the fact that how these apps can be native. So other than that, we're good.
Yeah, and I also want to expand on this is a technical webinar to show, once again, how you remove the complexities of a programming language deliverable versus a low code deliverable. It's literally night and day, the way that we can develop or our customers can develop. We have a full suite of what we call procure to pay automation apps. A month ago, we did a webinar on self-service requisitioning, which tied to stock and non-stock, and Ben actually showed punch out functionality using the CXML. So we have that at the front end. We have a freeware app called PO Approval, that's working from the JDE approval level revision workflow logic. We have a separate workflow engine inside of our app. And then we go from there to the buyer supplier portal for PO, inquire, change, acknowledge, ASN, shipment visibility functionality. It could be a form. It could be a simple. Link, shipping link. We do have AP automation functionality. We work with Amazon Textract. In fact, we're going to be doing a webinar similar to this next month, focusing on OCR. Suman, you want to briefly mention, that functionality, adding OCR as it extends, working with documents?
Yeah, it uses AWS Textract, uses the artificial intelligence of querying a document or getting the table information.
Okay, great. And so with AP automation, and then we do many onboarding apps with item master and vendor onboarding. So we're going to be doing a series of these webinars. If you have any interest, we're a very easy company to work with. We like doing proof of concepts. We like doing demonstrations. We have a community edition if you'd like to learn our self-service tutorials and do things yourself, such as what Ben just did. So with that, one more time, Kelly, you're saying we do not have any questions for this webinar, right?
There's none in the chat, but you guys feel free to ask questions.
Okay, well, we will be following up. I have an extended PowerPoint. So Callie will be sending that out, the slide, this recording. Everyone, thank you very much for taking your valuable time. We're trying to do more of these 30-minute webinars because of the value of time. And I think we accomplished a lot. So thank you very much. We appreciate any follow-up on project discussions with you or your team. Thank you and have a great rest of the day. Bye now.